why the Mediterranean diet is one of the healthiest lifestyle approach.
Basically, the Mediterranean diet is probably the most well-studied diet out there.
Welcome, Bill. Thank you for being part of the Mediterranean Diet Solution Summit. It's really an honor to have you here to tell us about the benefits of the Mediterranean diet and how we can incorporate it to make our lives healthier. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so maybe first you want to tell us a little bit more about your personal health journey. What brought you to be with us today?
Well, it started when I was much younger, when I was a teenager. I was very overweight. My mom was also very overweight her whole life. And so I really started then, and I started like researching about nutrition, and I did the things that I needed to do to lose weight, and I learned a lot. But then later on, I wanted to help other young kids with weight issues. So I became a dietitian, and I actually ended up going on a different path after that. I ended up going down the Mediterranean diet path because of a place that I worked in a hospital. And in the hospital, it was for people that had had a heart attack and trying to prevent them from having a second heart attack. And the doctor there, it was called the Change of Heart program. The doctor there prescribed the Mediterranean diet to everybody. And it was the first time that I really had learned about the Mediterranean diet. Even though I had been to Spain a few times, but I had never actually really been that into diet until then. And so then I started learning about the diet, and I instantly fell in love with it because the word diet is like, it's not a diet at all. It's more of a way of eating and a lifestyle. And there's no restrictions. You don't have to worry about calories and like counting foods and all of that. And so I just loved it right away because it kind of like gave me the freedom to eat the way I love to eat, and to maintain my weight. And actually I ended up losing 40 pounds eating the Mediterranean diet, eating a high fat, I won't say low carb diet. It was more of a low grain diet.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of carbs. It's really a high carb diet because there's lots of vegetables and lots of fruits. But I cut back on my bread, and I was able to lose 40 pounds fairly easily over a couple of years. I did it really slowly, which is the way to lose weight. So you keep it off.
Wow, that is amazing. And keeping it off, that's the most important. But also, I love the way you put it in when you said, not counting calories, not counting proportions. It is about the quality, basically, more than the quantity itself.
And it's super delicious food. And I've worked with lots of people I have a 10-week online program, and the people that go through that, a lot of them lose weight. Even though they're not trying to lose weight, they want to lose weight, but they're not counting calories, and they just start eating better, and the weight comes off naturally. Sometimes I have to work with them and cut back on certain things and train them that eating a high-fat diet is the way to go if you want to lose weight successfully. Because we've brought up in my generation, we were brought up that fat is really bad for you. And so it takes some training to realize that it's actually really good for you, and it will actually help you lose weight.
So actually your studies in the Mediterranean started in Crete, and you wrote 2 books from there with really delicious recipes, by the way. So what brought you to focus your studies on Crete and not other areas in the Mediterranean?
Yeah, well, when I was working for this hospital and learning about the Mediterranean diet, I was learning from cookbooks and from just books generally about the diet. And after a few years, I was like, I really need to go to the Mediterranean and really find out how they really eat. Because as I discovered, a lot of what is in the books about the Mediterranean, a lot of what's on the internet is not the Mediterranean diet at all. And so I chose Crete because Crete is known to be one of the healthiest places in the world. And it was the first, one of the first places that was researched from a nutrition standpoint in the late 1940s on into the 1960s and still today. And there was a man named Ansel Keys, who you've probably heard of, who did a lot of research on countries all around the world. And there was a study that was done in the 1950s about men with heart disease and the deaths from heart disease. And the highest in the world was Finland at the time, which is now one of the lowest, but at the time it was one of the highest. And Finland had like around 190 deaths per thousand in men from heart disease. The United States was in the 90s. Italy, which is another Mediterranean country, was 30. And Japan, which is, of course, the Asian diet is also very healthy, was 13 deaths per thousand. And on the island of Crete, it was 3. And as a matter of fact, when they first went to the island, they could only find one man on the entire island who had had any kind of heart disease in the previous 10 years. And so it was such a huge thing that they sent more researchers and they found 2 more people that had had heart disease. So heart disease was almost completely unheard of there, as well as cancer and diabetes and all of the major diseases. And this is one of the reasons why they had the highest longevity rates in the world. And the men lived to be the same age as the women, which is not the case here in America because, in a large part because men's diets are very different from women's diets here. And so the Mediterranean, the island of Crete was like very well researched, and I decided that would be where I would go. So I went there and I lived there for 2 months the first time. I've been back 4 or 5 times since then. And so I just ate a lot of food and met a lot of people and talked about the diet and really learned how they really eat, which is, as I said, very much different, which we'll get into from what we think of the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah, well, we get in the restaurants here. But let's dig in first a little bit more about why the Mediterranean diet is one of the healthiest approach, dietary approaches, lifestyle approaches.
Yeah. Basically, the Mediterranean diet is probably the most well-studied diet out there. There's thousands of studies about the diet, and one of the big studies was called the Lyon study, which was one of the more famous studies that was done in the 1990s. And they were looking at people that had had 1 heart attack, and they gave half the people the Mediterranean diet, and half the people they gave pretty much the American Heart Association diet. And I was actually on the board of the American Heart Association, and the American Heart Association published this study. But what happened was that it was supposed to be a 5-year study. And after 2 years, they had to stop the study because it was deemed unethical to continue it, because the people on the Mediterranean diet were 75% less likely to have a second heart attack than the people on the American Heart Association diet. And so they had to stop it because they didn't want more people to have a second heart attack. And so they told everybody what to eat. So that was one of the more famous studies. But since then, there literally has been a study from almost every part of your body, and even the DNA. It actually can change the DNA in your body. But everything from Alzheimer's to dementia to arthritis, asthma, those are just the A's. And obviously diabetes, cancer, heart disease. So the way I say is everything from your head to your toe, it will help. And the best part of that, of course, is that it's a delicious diet without restrictions. And I mean, you don't want to, I'm not saying to go out and eat Twinkies, but it's a diet that is about celebrating and eating in abundance. So.
Yeah, actually that you brought the celebrating, that is actually something that I do always think about it when I go back home. We do everything around food.
Yeah.
We socialize around food. We share always when it's all about food. When we have somebody coming at home, we always offer something. It's always a celebration of food. So how did you live that in there? Because when I moved to the East Coast from Spain, I felt that was totally different. There wasn't any link, like how the families, they gather all together around food. And I was kind of missing that. So how did you live that?
Well, the way that I live it is, and it's taken me a little while to really get there, but we have Mediterranean Living is our company and our website, and we have Mediterranean Living dinners once or twice a week. We test recipes and then we invite lots of friends, and it's a big celebration, you know, where everybody's trying the recipes and telling us whether they like them or not. And we're really, my wife and I are really community based, and we try to have as many events as we can. We just moved out into the country. Nice. And we've had people here almost every day for the last 3 months. We had a baby too, so people were coming to see the baby, but people have been bringing lots of food. So it's really a mindset of creating a community around you, because it isn't something that everybody does in America. And so the way I see it is you really have to create it yourself. And people, once you create it, then other people will start to invite you, and pretty soon, you know, there's a big community going on and lots of dinners. And so that's the way we do it. We also have been doing it online using like Facebook groups and things like that to try to get people talking to each other all over the world, which is really starting to take off. And, you know, my goal is to really create a worldwide community, as well as a community here in our small town in the country now.
That is amazing, because a lot of the Mediterranean living and Mediterranean meals that actually you find at the restaurants are not really Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Dishes. Like, for example, a tapas restaurant is not a tapas restaurant. We don't eat tapas constantly. And actually, when you eat the tapa, you go to the bar, it's a free small dish that they put you with the drink. Right. And then you have your real meal. So the same with the Italian restaurants or the Greek restaurants. So let's dig in how is really the real Mediterranean diet, how people can really see how is the real Mediterranean plate.
Yeah, it's if you go to a restaurant, I'll just give an Italian and a Greek example. If you go to an Italian restaurant and you get like spaghetti and meatballs, for example, you get probably close to 3/4 pound of pasta, and maybe close to a pound of meatballs and a little salad with something like blue cheese dressing on it and a whole bunch of white bread. And if you go to a Greek restaurant, you get a Greek salad that has iceberg lettuce and usually vegetables that aren't very palatable, and crumbled feta cheese. And if you go to Italy and go eat at somebody's house, or probably even an Italian restaurant, real Italian restaurant, you're going to get a small bowl of pasta with maybe one meatball. You're going to get a salad, and then there's going to be an array of vegetables, all kinds of vegetables. And the same with Greece. You know, people think of like moussaka and like the fattier foods. Those are things that they have maybe on a Sunday. Like Sunday is the day when they might have meat or chicken or fish, but generally they don't have any meat or chicken or fish on almost every day. Mm-hmm. Their diet is the main protein is beans, whereas the main protein in America is meat. Yeah. So they eat a lot more beans, which has a lot more fiber, less calories. It's definitely better for weight loss, and it's just better generally for you as a food. And then fruits and vegetables. The average American eats about 2.5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. In Greece and other parts of the Mediterranean, 9 servings, 12 servings, 15 servings, very easy, because it's a plant-based diet and everything is fruits and vegetables first. And then there might be, like I work with a lot of men, like I've worked with a lot of firemen, and what they, they want meat. And so here, they'll have big slabs of meat. A fireman, firewoman in Crete is not going to eat that way. But they, in Crete and in Greece, what they do is they will take a pound of meat and put it in a stew or a casserole with lots of vegetables. And so it might serve 8 to 10 people. So you're getting 1 to 2 ounces instead of the people. Like I worked with a client one time, the day before he came to see me, he ate a 48-ounce piece of steak at Morton's Steakhouse in New York City. It's 4 pounds of steak.
Wow.
And then he ate the rest of his meal. And it's not surprising that he had a heart attack and had heart issues. In the Mediterranean, meat is more of a staple. So it's not something that you're going to get a big slab of meat. It's something that's going to be cut up and put in with something else. Same with chicken. A lot of people think that they eat a ton of fish in the Mediterranean. It's usually like 3 to 6 ounces a week. And just give you an idea, like a 6-ounce can of albacore tuna, it's one of those small cans, it's not a lot. But they eat really fatty fishes that have omega-3s, and the fat is really good for you. So there's lots of fruits and vegetables, beans, lots of bean dishes. And then, of course, as you know, olive oil is in everything. And they eat 40% of their calories from fat in Greece and Crete, and 30% of their calories every day is from extra virgin olive oil. Yeah. I don't know if you wanted me to talk about some of the specifics about the olive oil to know what kind to get.
Yeah, maybe first let's keep talking a little bit more about the animal food that we put over there, because there are certain concepts that are important also to consider when we eat a certain source of animal protein. No matter which kind of dietary theory people decide to go, what is important is that it's clean. So something very different over there is the grass-fed versus the grain-fed. So how can you explain that?
Well, basically, if we're talking about cows, they eat less cow meat in Mediterranean, but let's talk about cows. Cows are not supposed to eat grains. They're meant to eat grass and herbs and food like that. And so if they're eating grains, they end up getting sick. And then they end up having antibiotics because they're sick. And then not only are you eating a sick animal, but you're eating the antibiotics. And so if you get a grass-fed meat, which you can much more easily get in this country now, you're not getting any of those issues, and you're actually getting omega-3 fats. One of the main sources in America of omega-3 fats before like the 1900s was from meat, because they were eating grass-fed animals. So the animal is healthier. When I was in Crete, I actually saw a field of chickens, and they were eating the olives. There was like olives coming off the tree and the herbs. So it was like a pre-fed olive herb chicken.
Wow.
So it's much better for you. And like I said, like where we live now, there's grass-fed farms all around us. So we can actually go to the farm and get meat for not much more than the grain-fed meat. But still, even in most supermarkets now, you can get grass-fed meat. You just have to ask or look for it. I asked the other day at a little convenience store that had a butcher, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we have it in the back. We'll go get you one." So it's important to get grass-fed animals, and if possible, like knowing really where the animals are from. Like if you know a farm down the street or something like that, I would prefer to get my meat from there than a supermarket.
Yeah, it's more affordable to try to look for local farmers. It's more sustainable, and it's usually cleaner. So I always say, try to know your farmer, because that is the best thing you can do for your body. So it's great that you're surrounded by so many farms, because that makes it easier.
Yeah, we have eggs across the street. we have goat milk and goat cheese down the street the other way, and then grass-fed meat up the street.
I'm
But we're lucky
jealous.
that way.
Yeah. So actually, my favorite animal protein when is fish. And when I used to live in Spain, I used to eat a lot of sardines. Talking about the fatty fish, that was one of my favorite. So whenever I go back and my mother is asking me, "What do you want for lunch?" I say, "I want sardines."
Yeah.
But the
Yeah,
fresh
sardines,
ones, yeah.
it's not only the fat, but also the calcium.
Yeah.
And so it's because you're eating bones, that's extra good.
Yeah. Yeah, the fresh sardines, not the canned, the ones that you grill, those are really, really amazing. And the most of the fish also really important to point out is usually wild caught. Is never farmed in the Mediterranean. And I am from the mountains in the middle of Spain, and every day we used to get trucks coming with the fresh fish every
Nice.
single day. So that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
So what about eggs? Because something that we know, like there is a misconception if eggs are good for you or not because they have a lot of cholesterol, but actually they are also really rich in omega-3. So,
Yeah.
so that is also a very good source of fat and protein in the Mediterranean. So what do you think is the source of omega-3 in those eggs in the Mediterranean?
Well, in the Mediterranean, there's actually a woman from Crete who named Artemis Simopoulos, and she worked for the National Institute of Health in America. And she was trying to figure out why the eggs had so many omega-3s in them in Crete, because they had done tests on it. And then she was thinking about that the chickens in Crete eat purslane, which is an herb. It's a weed, actually. And she was like, where am I going to find purslane to do a test to find the omega-3s? And she went out into the street in Washington, and the purslane was growing out of the cracks in Washington, D.C. because it's a weed, but many of the weeds that we try to get rid of in our garden are much healthier than the things that we grow in the garden. And purslane is one of those things. Purslane is packed with omega-3s, yet the US government considers the purslane a noxious weed. So they actually sent in this purslane sawfly. They brought the purslane sawfly in to kill all the purslane. And now there's 2 states at least that are trying to kill the purslane sawfly so the purslane will come back. Because purslane is really, really healthy and good for you. And the chickens were eating the purslane, and so then the eggs had the omega-3s. So just like with cows or goats or any animal, the chickens naturally will eat a lot of herbs and grass. If you have that kind of a chicken that's eating the herbs and grass, you're going to get naturally high omega-3s in your eggs. If you go to the store and you get chicken or get eggs that say omega-3s, high in omega-3s, those were probably injected with omega-3s because chances are they're not being fed, grass-fed or herb-fed. So you want to, again, try to find the real grass-fed chickens that are laying the grass-fed eggs. And those are going to be packed with omega-3s. Plus, one other thing is that there's so many things that we don't know about. You know, like nutrition is still kind of a new science. So it might not be just the omega-3s that make eggs healthy from grass-fed animals. It could be 20 other things, but we haven't discovered it yet.
You have your own chickens?
Am I around chickens?
You have your own?
We don't have them yet. The people across the street have them, but we're planning on it.
Yeah.
We just moved here 3 months ago, and then we had the baby, and so we haven't had time to have chickens yet, but we will in the spring.
It is some work, but it's worth it.
Yeah, you got to build a chicken coop.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about dairy, because dairy is always a discussion. People should be eating dairy after breastfeeding or not, but actually dairy is a big source of protein and fat in the Mediterranean countries. So which is the type of dairy that usually they consume the most, and how much, and the properties?
Well, probably the top dairy source that is really good for you is yogurt. and the way that they make yogurt there. First of all, again, it's from grass-fed animals. But second of all, yogurt and other fermented foods have the probiotics that are good for your gut biome. And those are foods that, you know, are really good for you. The yogurt, but also some of the cheeses are really good for you, like some of the fermented cheeses. And then I don't want to necessarily promote raw milk because it's not, I guess it's legal now to sell it, but generally they will make the yogurt and the cheese from raw milk, so it has a lot of enzymes that a pasteurized milk won't have, or a cheese. So when we are promoting like an anti-inflammatory Mediterranean diet, we might tell people not to eat cheese or drink milk because that can be inflammatory for some people, but we will tell them to eat yogurt because yogurt has all of the natural probiotics and is actually anti-inflammatory as long as you're eating a plain good yogurt that's from grass-fed animals.
Yeah, a plain with yogurt just with milk and bacteria, no other starches or sugars added to the yogurt. Yeah, that's a bit. I grew up, my grandfather had cows and I grew up drinking that milk, like the raw milk, just boiling it a couple of times, and that's what we were using to make yogurt or kefir or just drink it like that. That was totally different story, that milk.
So they eat kefir a lot in Spain?
Yeah, we pass the mother to each other. That's how we do it. Yeah. So it's not like in Crete or other countries like that they add yogurt almost on every single meal. But usually we like to have it like more for breakfast or a dessert. Kind of like to add some fruits on it or nuts. So, but yeah.
That just reminded me of something about Crete that and Greece, I wanted to talk about, which is that half of the year they're vegan because of their religion. They're Greek Orthodox. And so there's a lot of religious days. And on those days, they will not eat any animal products of any kind. So a lot of people think that that's another reason why they're so healthy, is because they don't eat any animal products for half the year.
Yeah. And that, I guess it would also depends, because some of them could end up with anemia. Like I've seen a lot of O-type people, they end up with anemia if they go into vegan. But the way we have to eat also has a lot to do with our ancestors, where we are from. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So let's dig in and talk a little bit more about the Mediterranean liquid gold, the olive oil that you mentioned before. So why the olive oil is one of the healthiest oils in the planet, I call it.
Yeah. So I actually have been importing an olive oil from Crete for the last 10 years. And I think it's like, it just tastes healthy when you have a really good olive oil. And like I said, they eat 30% on average of their calories from olive oil every day. But the woman I wrote the cookbook with, she's from Crete, and she went into the mountains in Crete. I asked her to go in and talk to these people that were in their 90s and living and still really healthy. And there was a man up there who was drinking or having a cup of olive oil with every meal. And so there's a saying in Crete that they have olive oil in their veins, which is probably true of all of the Mediterranean. There's so much olive oil. Of course, it's good for your skin. It's good for, they're actually doing research right now that's showing that olive oil that has the burn to it has compounds in it that can be helpful for Alzheimer's and other inflammatory diseases. So when you're choosing olive oil, unfortunately, much of the olive oil in this country is either fraudulent or like it's not really extra virgin olive oil when it says it's extra virgin. Like it might be just virgin oil and it says extra virgin, or in some cases it's actually not olive oil at all. They add, like, take a vegetable oil and add beta carotene and chlorophyll to make it taste and look like olive oil. So you have to be really like careful about which olive oil that you buy because it's so good for you. You want to make sure you have the real deal. So a couple of things that you want to look for. Obviously, you want it to be extra virgin. Also, the burn. If you take a sip of really fresh olive oil, I'm sure you've done this, you'll get a burn in your throat. If it's really, really fresh olive oil, it almost feels like you're going to start choking because it's so astringent to your throat. And a lot of people here in this country think that that means that it's bad or that it's not good for you. But it turns out that the chemical that causes that burn is the same. It mimics the chemical that's in ibuprofen. So it's a very strong anti-inflammatory. And last year, I interviewed this man from the University of Athens pharmacy department, and they're doing research on olive oil and Alzheimer's. They found a text from over 1,000 years ago that showed, in the text it said, if you have a headache or a toothache, take really raw olive oil. Because obviously they didn't have ibuprofen back then, so they used olive oil as a way to relieve your pain. And so it shows you how strong it is, and they've known this for years. As far as where to get a good olive oil, it's a little bit harder to figure that out. But surprisingly, the Costco brand is actually from a very highly regulated part of Italy. And Trader Joe's brand is really good. Also, like some of the American brands, they're not Mediterranean, but like the California Olive Ranch is a really good olive oil. But if you go to any kind of a store that has like a lot of ethnic food, or a place that actually has barrels of olive oil where you'd get to try them, those kind of places usually have really good olive oils. So you can try each olive oil and see if you get that burn from it, and try the taste and see which ones you like. That's the best way to do it.
Actually, when I moved to this country and then I started buying olive oil, I had no idea that some of them are a mix and it's not real olive oil. As I was thinking, this is not olive oil, it's water, because I didn't get that bitter aftertaste that is burning your throat. So I say, oh, this is water, this is not real olive oil. That is a really good test for a good olive oil. And talking about the anti-inflammatory properties, when you said they had a headache or fever and they were taking olive oil, I remember when I was a kid, I hit myself the front against the door, and then the first thing that my mother's friend did was put in olive oil in my front so it wouldn't get inflamed. So it reminded me to that. Yeah,
it works. It
worked.
Stuff. Yeah,
really worked. So let's talk about other liquid that in the Mediterranean they also call it gold, because it's part actually of the Mediterranean living, which is alcohol. And people will think alcohol causes a lot of inflammation, but actually there are different types of alcohol. And I just have a very brief story. My great-grandfather passed when he was 105. And he was one of those persons with no coronary heart diseases, like no medications all the way to death. One day just didn't wake up. But then he used to drink his glass of wine with every single meal. And sometimes for breakfast, he used to prepare what he called his power drink, which it was a glass of wine with a yolk of one egg. And then he mixed all together and he put it in. So actually he was getting a lot of antioxidants and omega-3 because they were clean chickens. So how can you explain that? Maybe could you explain to the audience, if we know that alcohol can cause a lot of inflammation, why they are considered to be one of the healthiest people in the planet if they drink alcohol?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, not everybody in the Mediterranean drinks alcohol. If you go to the Muslim countries, they don't, and they're very healthy as well. So it's not a must, of course. And I always tell people if they have any issues with alcohol, obviously don't drink it. But a small amount of alcohol with your meals can actually be more of an anti-inflammatory. The difference is that here in this country, especially men, I don't want to just pick on men, but me being one, I will pick on us. They tend to go out like on a Saturday night and drink a case of beer. And then they definitely don't eat Mediterranean. while they're drinking. They might go to Burger King or something like that. I definitely did that when I was younger. And that is a very strong inflammatory if you're doing that. If, on the other hand, you're having a small amount with your meals, first of all, any alcohol, no matter what kind, increases your good LDL or HDL, sorry, H for healthy cholesterol. And so it's good for you in that way. But if you're drinking like something like a margarita that has a lot of sugar in it, no longer any good. But in the Mediterranean, they drink a lot of wine, red wine specifically. But there's studies that are showing that white wine is also can be just as good for your heart as red wine. So there's certain things in red wine that are very good. The other thing they drink a lot of is moonshine. And the moonshine in Greece, you get with lunch and dinner. Even if you go out to lunch, they give you a free flask. And the first time I went there, I was by myself at the beginning. I didn't know that the flask was the same whether it's 8 people or 1 person. So I just drank the whole thing, which I would not do. I have some drinking stories. I could never outdrink even the like 80-year-old guys in Greece. But I think the difference is the small amounts over long periods of time compared and eating an anti-inflammatory diet with it. They also tend to smoke a lot there, but have low rates of lung cancer. Again, lung cancer is an inflammatory disease, so you're eating anti-inflammatory, but also the cigarettes there are, they grow the tobacco themselves, and so it doesn't have all the chemicals that a lot of cigarettes here have. And I'm not promoting smoking. It's just interesting that they have lower rates of lung cancer. So I think it's just with the alcohol, it's how they do it. And it's actually less of a problem for people there because it's something that even kids will drink some wine and they drink it, every day for their entire lives. And so, really the jury is out whether alcohol is good or bad. It's kind of like coffee. Coffee is another thing that a lot of people in the Mediterranean drink, but there's studies that say it's not good and there's studies that say it is good. Same with alcohol. So I think maybe in 100 years we'll know.
If it's a good organic coffee and it's a good wine with no sulfates and clean, it's good. And as you said with the tobacco, my great-grandfather used to do that. He used to buy very clean tobacco and he used to make his cigarettes himself.
This is the guy that lived to be 105? Yeah. There you go.
So all of it together.
And I think one other quick thing about that is it's again goes back to the celebration, like being happy, being in a community. I think that a lot of people that drink alcohol here are alone and they drink by themselves and they're depressed. And so their health is going to be very different than people that are out celebrating with the family and having a drink or two. So it's like the whole lifestyle as well.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's somebody who is looking for losing weight and they decide they want to give a try to the Mediterranean diet, but they have also a very standard Western diet. So which are your suggestions to be able to use the Mediterranean diet to lose weight and keep it off? And which is the best way to switch?
So first of all, the Mediterranean diet is officially not the best diet for losing weight, because there's other diets we can lose weight a lot quicker. But the difference is it is the best diet to keep the weight off. And the studies have shown that. And it's the best diet to lose weight slowly, which is the best way to lose weight. Your body can only metabolize up to 2 pounds of fat per week. So if you're losing more than 2 pounds a week, you're losing muscle or water. And you don't want to lose either one of those because then you're going to gain the weight back quicker. So you want to lose weight slowly, which the Mediterranean is set up perfectly for. And what you want to do is to still eat a high-fat diet, but not go crazy with the fat. You know, you can't be like just pouring cups on because it does have calories. But that being said, you're eating, most people are eating more fat when I put them on a weight loss diet than they were before when they were gaining weight. So high fat, lower grains, like bread and rice and pasta, but again, not completely out. There was actually a study that came out last year that showed that people in Italy, the more pasta they ate, the more weight they lost, or less of a weight issue they had. So cutting back on those kind of grains, still having lots of fruits and vegetables to fill you up, beans, still having meat, chicken, and fish. Those are the best ways. And also really paying attention to what you're drinking. Liquid calories, basically, when you drink a liquid, your body doesn't think of it as a calorie. That's the best way to say it. So you can keep on drinking and drinking, like a soda or a juice or alcohol, anything like that. So you have to be careful about what you're drinking. I have discovered if I'm really paying attention and eating high fat, low grains, high carbs, not drinking a lot, and of course moving, it's very easy to lose weight. That's how I lost the 40 pounds. I actually, I put on a little baby weight. Everybody's been bringing food and nobody has, I haven't been exercising. Most people have been bringing pretty healthy food, but it's been a little stressful here. We have a new house. Our businesses are now here. We have a baby. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to invite all of my community, the Facebook community, to join me on like an 8-week journey to lose my baby weight and help them lose whatever they're going to lose.
That is awesome.
So it's something that, you know, I don't know if it's because, you know, my mom was very overweight and I was brought up in that kind of atmosphere, but I have to always pay attention. I can't like just, you know, if I start eating lots of bread and sugar and stuff, I gain weight. And so, but now the difference is now I know, like it's been 3 months and I'm like, okay, I probably gained like 5 or 6 pounds. It's time to take it off and ask everybody to join me and do it in a community.
And that is a really good point, because this is a lifestyle, as you said. It's not a diet. So if you go through a stressful situation like you go now, and maybe you are putting more sugars than normal, at least you know how to go back to your routine, your real lifestyle.
And all you really have to do is just go back.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going on a diet. It's just going back to this way of eating and enjoying it. And again, because it's so delicious, it's not a hardship. It's actually, I'll be eating better than I've been eating in the last 3 months. So
actually a very good way for people that wants to give it a try is maybe joining your Facebook community and also your 10 months program. So it's a really good transition into continuing by themselves using the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah. I try to, we try to keep people in our community even after they do the programs. So once people join the Facebook group, they stay in it forever. And community is the most important thing to us, you know, community, good food, and helping people just feel better are the really important things.
Yeah, community increases oxytocin, which makes us feel good and happy and loved. So, well, thank you very much. Thank you for this amazing content that you brought in here. I'm just thinking about olive oil and amazing food from Spain, and my saliva is already coming out. It's really one of the richest dietary approaches in the planet, and thank you for bringing it here and give the person a hope that we are able to, you know, keep a healthy weight and having a healthier lifestyle just with a few changes here and there. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.